Hey Reddit, I guess I should start with an introduction. My name's Jake, I'm 18, and according to my parents, I'm a massive disappointment. Not because I did anything bad, no criminal record, no bad habits, nothing like that. No, my crime was deciding not to go to college right away. Instead, I wanted to focus on my freelance business, something I'd been building since high school. I'd been doing pretty well for myself, too. It wasn't making me rich yet, but I was earning enough to support myself. I had clients, steady work, and most importantly, I actually liked what I was doing. But my parents? They hated it. You'll never make it without a degree. My mom would say at least twice a week. You're just wasting time. You think this little side hustle is going to support you forever. My dad would add. They treated me like I was some reckless kid refusing to grow up. I told them I wasn't against college. I just didn't want to rush into it. If my business failed, I'd reconsider, but for now, I was taking a chance on myself. They did not approve. At the same time, my older brother, Matt, was having issues. He and his wife, Lisa, had been struggling to pay rent. He wasn't exactly the most responsible person, and Lisa had expensive tastes. They'd already borrowed money from my parents multiple times, and while my parents would complain about it, they always gave in. Then one day, I came home and found my mom in my room, sorting through my stuff. What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "We need to talk." I had a bad feeling right away. She sat me down in the living room, where my dad and Matt were already waiting. Lisa wasn't there, probably too busy doing whatever it was she did. Mom cleared her throat. "Jake, you know how hard things have been for your brother and Lisa. They need some stability right now." I just stared at her. "Okay." My dad sighed like I was being difficult. "We've decided that Matt and Lisa are going to move in. They need a place to stay, and it doesn't make sense for them to struggle when we have space." I blinked. You'll be fine, Jake," Mom said in her most patronizing voice. "You're 18. You can find a place to stay. You're making your own money, aren't you?" I was too shocked to even respond at first. They were kicking me out. Just like that. "But this is my room," I finally said. "I live here." "You don't contribute, Jake," Matt cut in, arms crossed like he was the one being inconvenienced. "You don't pay rent. I've been struggling, and I actually have a family to support." I almost laughed. "Lisa doesn't work, and you keep spending money on dumb stuff. How's that my problem?" Mom shot me a warning look. "Jake, don't be selfish. You're not our priority anymore. Matt and Lisa need this more than you do." Then, as if to hammer the point home, she picked up one of my duffel bags and tossed it toward the door. "Start packing," she said. I looked at my dad, hoping, just hoping, he'd at least try to reason with her. But nope. He just nodded like this was completely reasonable. I could have argued. I could have begged. But something in me just clicked. I stood up. Fine. I packed up my stuff, whatever I could carry, and walked out the door. I didn't cry. I didn't even say goodbye. If they wanted to treat me like an afterthought, I'd return the favor. I crashed at a friend's place for a bit and threw myself into my work. For 6 months, I didn't hear a word from them. Not a single call, not a text, not even a passive-aggressive Facebook post about how kids these days are so ungrateful. I guess, in their minds, I was out of sight, out of mind, which was fine by me. In those 6 months, my life changed drastically. I went from scraping by to making more money than I ever thought possible at my age. The kind of money that made me laugh at the idea of ever needing to borrow from my parents or anyone again. At first, I was just freelancing, but then I got smart. I started outsourcing some of the work, built a brand, and before I knew it, I had a full-blown business. A successful one. One that didn't just pay my bills, it let me move into a beautiful apartment, buy my dream setup, and most importantly, never worry about money again. And that was around the time my parents suddenly remembered I existed. It started with a casual text from my mom. "Mom, hey sweetie, how have you been?" "Sweetie?" I actually had to double-check to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. This was the same woman who, 6 months ago, had tossed my things out like I was a tenant who forgot to pay rent. I didn't reply. A few days later, another text. Mom texted, "Jake, it's been a while. We miss you. Why don't you come over for dinner?" Miss me? That was funny, because I sure didn't remember them missing me when I was hauling my stuff out in a duffel bag. Again, I didn't reply. Then, the calls started. At first, I ignored them. But after the 5th one in a single day, I got curious and picked up. "Hello, Jake." My mom's voice was way too cheerful. Oh, honey, it's so good to hear your voice. We were just talking about you. Uh-huh, I said flatly. And she hesitated. And, well, we wanted to see how you were doing. You know, catch up. Maybe you could come by the house sometime. I smirked. My old house, you mean? There was an awkward silence. Then my dad cleared his throat in the background. Look, Jake, we know things were tense before, but we're still family. And family takes care of each other. That line? Oh, that line was rich. Family takes care of each other? I repeated slowly. That's funny, because I don't remember much taking care when you threw me out to make room for Matt. My mom sighed like I was the unreasonable one. Jake, that's in the past. We thought it was best at the time, but we miss you. Right. And this sudden interest has nothing to do with the fact that I'm doing well now. Of course not, she said way too quickly. But, well, since you brought it up, we did hear that you've been doing well for yourself. You know, your aunt ran into one of your old teachers, and they mentioned how proud they were of you. Isn't that wonderful? Ah, there it was. They had no idea what I was actually doing, but they'd heard enough to know that I wasn't struggling. And now they were trying to ease their way back in. Still, I played dumb. Huh, that is interesting. Mom laughed nervously. Yes. So, why don't you come over for dinner? I'll make your favorite meal. We can all catch up. I pretended to think. I don't know, Mom. Is there even room for me? I mean, since Matt and Lisa are there and all. Silence. Then, in a much smaller voice. Well, about that. I raised an eyebrow. What about that? My dad sighed heavily. They moved out. I almost burst out laughing. Of course they did. And I prompted. Well, things have been a little difficult, Mom admitted. Your father and I have been helping them out financially, but money's been tight. Ah, there it is. And what does that have to do with me? Well, my mom hesitated again. We just thought, since you're doing so well, maybe you could help out a little. Bingo. I let out a low whistle. Wow. So let me get this straight. You kicked me out because I wasn't a priority anymore. But now that I have money, I'm a priority. That's not fair, Jake. My dad cut in. We're still your parents. Were you still my parents when you let Matt take my room? Were you still my parents when Mom threw my stuff outside? Were you still my parents when you didn't even bother to check on me for 6 months? More silence. Then my mom tried a different angle. Jake, we made mistakes, okay? But we love you. And right now, we really need your help. I sat back, grinning. Oh, this was way too good. I was about to have some fun. I let the silence stretch out, enjoying the discomfort on the other end of the line. Finally, I sighed, keeping my voice deliberately calm. You need my help? That's funny. Because 6 months ago, you made it very clear that I wasn't your priority anymore. You told me that straight to my face. Remember that, Mom? Right before you started throwing my things outside. Jake, that was what, Mom? I cut her off. A mistake? A bad decision? No, it was a choice. You chose Matt over me. You chose to get rid of me. And now you think I owe you something? Let me make this crystal clear. I don't owe you anything. Jake, please. My mom's voice wavered, but I wasn't falling for it. Dad chimed in, his voice edged with frustration. Son, you're being selfish. We raised you. We gave you everything. And now that we need a little help, you turn your back on us. I laughed coldly. Oh, now you want to bring up raising me? That's interesting, because when I needed a place to stay, you didn't seem to care too much about that. And a little help? Don't make me laugh. You didn't check in for 6 months. The only reason you're talking to me now is because I have money. Be honest for once. Another heavy silence. Then my mom's voice broke through, more desperate now. Jake, please, we're struggling. Your father's hours got cut, and we've been helping Matt with his rent ever since he left. We're behind on bills, and that's not my problem. I finished for her. You made it clear I wasn't part of the family anymore. So now, you're not my problem anymore. Jake, don't be like this, Mom begged, but I was already shaking my head, even though they couldn't see me. You wanted me gone, and now you got what you wanted. Leave me alone. Good luck. And with that, I hung up. For the next few days, I ignored every call and text they sent. The guilt-tripping messages, the passive-aggressive ones, even the ones that tried to act like nothing had happened. I figured they'd give up eventually. I was wrong. One evening, as I was finishing up some work, there was a loud, persistent knocking at my door. I frowned, pushing back from my desk. I wasn't expecting anyone. My stomach twisted with a strange sense of foreboding as I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. And there they were, my parents, standing right outside my apartment. I froze. How did they even find me? I never told them my new address. But as I stared at them, my dad knocked again, harder this time. Jake, we know you're in there. Open up. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared through the peephole, my mind racing. How had they found me? I hadn't given them my address, hadn't posted anything that could lead them here. But there they were, my mother clutching her purse like it was the only thing holding her together, my father standing stiffly beside her, his jaw set in that way that meant he was barely keeping his temper in check. The knocking came again, harder this time. Jake, we're not leaving. My dad called through the door, his voice firm. You might as well open up. I considered ignoring them, just walking away and pretending I wasn't home. But I knew my parents. They were stubborn. They wouldn't just leave, not when they needed something from me. With a sigh, I unlocked the door and pulled it open. The second my mother saw me, her face crumpled. Oh, Jake, thank God, she breathed, stepping forward like she was about to hug me. I didn't move, and she hesitated, her arms falling back to her sides. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. How did you find me? Dad cleared his throat. Your brother. I should have known. I hadn't spoken to Matt since I left, but I guess he must have found out where I lived, probably through some mutual acquaintance or maybe even digging through my old stuff. The thought made my stomach turn. I let out a slow breath. What do you want? Mom glanced at Dad, then back at me. Jake, honey, we need help. Yeah, I got that much from the 50 missed calls, I said dryly. I told you already, I'm not interested. Jake, don't be like this, Dad said, his voice low and warning. We're family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Now we're family? That's funny. Because last time I checked, family doesn't kick their kid out and throw their stuff onto the lawn so their golden boy can have his room. I fixed my mom with a pointed look. Ring any bells? She had the nerve to look offended. That's not fair. We didn't kick you out, Jake. You absolutely kicked me out. I cut her off. Don't even try to twist it. You chose Matt over me. I was nothing but an inconvenience to you. Dad's face darkened. That's not true. Oh, really? I shot back. Then tell me, why didn't you offer me so much as a couch to sleep on? Why didn't you help me the way you're helping Matt? If he couldn't afford rent, why didn't he find another place instead of stealing mine? They didn't have an answer for that. Instead, Mom just sighed. Jake, we made mistakes, okay? But things have been really hard. Your father's barely getting any hours at work, and we've been covering Matt's rent since he moved in. We're behind on bills. The mortgage, the electricity, everything. We're drowning. I tilted my head. And that's my problem? How? She flinched, like she couldn't believe I'd actually said that. Jake, we're desperate. We don't have anyone else to turn to. And whose fault is that? I asked, raising an eyebrow. You burned every bridge with me. You made it clear that I wasn't a priority, that I wasn't even wanted. Dad took a step forward, and for a second, I thought he was going to try to intimidate me. It wouldn't work. Not anymore. Jake, you can't seriously be this heartless. I can be when it comes to people who threw me away the second I didn't fit their expectations. I met his gaze, unflinching. I was supposed to go to college, right? That was the plan? And when I didn't, when I decided to do things my way, you decided I was a lost cause. A disappointment. Jake, that's not. Save it. I cut my mom off again. You know what's really funny? If I had gone to college, I wouldn't have been able to help you anyway. I'd be drowning in student debt. But since I didn't, and I actually made something of myself, now you suddenly care about me again. Now I'm worth your time. Mom's eyes were glistening now, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. We're sorry, Jake, she whispered. I stared at her, letting the words hang in the air between us. Then I shook my head. No, you're not. You're just sorry you're broke. Her face twisted like I'd slapped her. Dad took a deep breath, clearly trying to rein in his temper. Jake, we're asking for help. Just a little bit. Just to get us back on our feet. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. You want my help? Yes, Mom said quickly. I smiled. Here's my advice, get a job. Maybe two. That's what I did. Their expressions fell instantly. Jake, I'm done with this conversation. I stepped back into my apartment. Leave me alone. And good luck. Then I shut the door in their faces. I stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, waiting to see if they'd knock again. But they didn't. After a few minutes, I heard their footsteps retreat down the hall. I exhaled slowly. It should have felt satisfying. I wanted it to. But a small, bitter part of me still ached, because no matter what they had done, they were still my parents, and they'd only ever see me as a wallet. I thought that would be the end of it, that I'd made myself clear. I was wrong, because 3 days later, they came back. This time, they weren't alone. This time, they brought Matt and his wife. I almost laughed when I saw them standing there, all four of them crammed together outside my apartment door. Mom looked hopeful, Dad looked annoyed, and Matt had that same smug, entitled expression he always wore when he thought things would go his way. And his wife, Amanda? She looked downright furious, like she was the one who had been wronged. I took my time opening the door, leaning against the frame with my arms crossed. Wow, a whole family reunion. What, did you think if you brought reinforcements, I'd suddenly feel guilty? Mom sighed. Jake, please. I held up a hand, cutting her off. No, no. Let's hear it. What's the angle this time? Because I already said no, and you didn't listen. Matt stepped forward like he was the leader of the group. Listen, man, we're not here to fight. We just need to talk. I raised an eyebrow. You? Talk? That's funny. Because the last time we talked, it was you telling me how I was the selfish one for being upset that you stole my room. He had the audacity to look offended. I didn't steal it, okay? Mom and Dad made a decision. Oh, I know, I said, smirking. They made it very clear that I wasn't a priority, that you were more important. And now, you're all standing here like stray dogs, begging me to throw you a bone. Amanda scoffed. Oh, don't be so dramatic. I turned my attention to her. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I being dramatic? Would you like me to remind you how you personally threw my stuff onto the lawn? How you looked me in the eye and told me to get over it? She had the nerve to roll her eyes. God, you're still on that? I grinned. I am. Dad cleared his throat, stepping in before Amanda could say something worse. Jake, let's be serious for a moment. We're in real trouble. Oh, I am serious, I said. I'm very serious. I'm seriously enjoying this. Mom let out a shaky breath, clasping her hands together like she was praying. Jake, we can't pay the mortgage. The house is going to be foreclosed on. Your father's work cut his hours even more. Matt and Amanda, she glanced at them like she was expecting them to chime in. But they just looked at the floor. They've been trying, but it's just too much. We can't afford this anymore. I pretended to think for a moment. Huh, that does sound bad. She nodded eagerly. It is bad. Real bad, Matt added. Super bad, I agreed, then shrugged. Anyway, best of luck. Mom's face fell. Jake, I cut her off, my tone sharp. No, I don't care. I don't owe you anything. Dad stepped forward, trying the intimidation tactic again. Jake, we raised you. Oh, don't even start with that, I snapped, my voice cold now. You raised me? You fed me and housed me because you were legally required to. That's called parenting, not a freaking investment you can cash in on later. Amanda scoffed. You're being a child. I whirled on her. You're the one standing outside my door, begging me for money because you and your husband couldn't figure out how to be financially responsible. I left with nothing and made something of myself. Meanwhile, you two played house at my expense, and now you're drowning. Matt clenched his jaw. Jake, come on. We're family. I laughed. Funny how you only pull the family card when you need something. Where was all this? Were family energy when you watched Mom throw my stuff outside? Where was it when you moved into my room without a second thought? He had nothing to say to that. Dad sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Jake, we get it. We messed up. But can't you just— No, my voice was sharp and final. You don't get to throw me away and then come crawling back when it's convenient. You don't get to treat me like trash and then expect me to save you. Mom looked like she was on the verge of tears. Jake, please. Just a little help. I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice. How many times do I have to say it? I do not care. Amanda scoffed again, crossing her arms. You're unbelievable. You have so much money, and you're really just going to let your family suffer. I tilted my head. Yep. She opened her mouth, probably to call me selfish or cruel, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned on my heel, walked back into my apartment, and shut the door in their faces. For a few seconds, I just stood there, listening. I heard muffled voices, Mom still pleading, Matt muttering something, Dad letting out a long sigh. Then, finally, footsteps. They left. I exhaled slowly, running a hand through my hair. This time, I felt nothing. No guilt. No sadness. Just peace. They had made their choice. And now, so had I. and I would never, ever look back. But honestly, what a wild turn of events. One moment, I'm getting thrown out of my own home like yesterday's garbage, and the next, my entire family is on my doorstep, practically on their knees, acting like I owe them the world. It's almost funny. Almost. So, what do you guys think? Was I too harsh? Should I have given them a little help? Or did they deserve every second of that humiliation? Because after everything they put me through, I feel like I barely gave them what was coming.